Hello, everybody. Dara Stewart here, and welcome to this week's episode of Inner Insights, an episode I'm really looking forward to today. So I'm just going to give you all a little bit of an introduction to George here. So George Stuby, a psychologist and musician who helps high achievers break free from perfectionism, anxiety, people-pleasing, and emotional shutdown. His work combines nervous system regulation, breathwork, somatic approaches, music therapy, and psychedelic assisted therapy to help people reconnect with themselves beyond external success. George, it's absolutely wonderful to have you here today.
Really happy to be here as well, Dara.
Yeah, great. This beautiful studio here in London.
Mm-hmm.
It's always wonderful to do in-person episodes. And
100%.
really looking forward to, hearing all about your amazing work that you're putting out into the world at the moment. So, I'd love to maybe start with, how did you get into this sphere of working at the moment?
That's a really great question. And actually, somebody asked me this morning after a workshop I gave. And I said a few things to that. And she said, okay, you got there through like your own pain. And I felt, okay, that's a really good summary, actually. So, I got into this kind of work through when I was like 18 years old, feeling like I have a really hard time to connect to people that I don't already know, especially to women. And I was suffering from that because I just moved to Zurich at that time to do my bachelor's, and I found it really difficult to connect on a deeper emotional level. Mm-hmm. That's what I know now. Back then I didn't have that language, but so I was looking for ways and solutions for that, and through that I got into like the field of personal development.
Mm-hmm.
And another big part of that journey is also that already at that time I actually knew that I really want to do something with music and follow my passion of music. But I felt there are a lot of forces, for example, from my parents, but also society that were like that I couldn't overcome at that point, and I felt very stuck in that. And that was another very big driver for me to work on myself or to find solutions for that dilemma.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, like when you start, like one workshop is leading to another workshop, and one facilitator to another one, and one modality to another one. And slowly, that opened up more and more. And when I was 22, I had a very significant near-death experience in a car crash in which I almost died. I remember very clearly to wake up in the intensive care unit of a hospital in the Swiss Alps, knowing that I really have to follow what's important for me, and that's music at that time. Still is, but expanded from there. And at the second big insight at that point was that the second life opportunity is not only for me, but also for me helping others on their journeys or in their lives. And I didn't know how that could look like at that point. So I started to follow the first one, following music. And through that, I started to work with coaches around music production and had really powerful experiences of like what it can mean to be coached and to grow in a coaching relationship.
Yeah.
And at one point I felt, actually, this is something I could pass on. So I started to work with other producers, music producers, and supported them in their productions. And I quickly realized there that the technical know-how and the musical skills, that's only one side of the coin when it comes to why is someone not releasing their music, for example, why is somebody stuck in their creative process.
Yeah.
So the other side is like the inner world, the personal world, and like restrictions, limiting beliefs, old trauma, and all of those things. So I felt it would be really beautiful to learn things, modalities, ways of working that I could utilize to help those people on that side of the coin as well. And that's how I got more and more into psychology, into all kinds of coaching modalities, into music therapy, also into psychedelics. And yeah, so the first few years after the car accident were all about that. And as you also know, through doing this kind of educations, you start to see things about yourself that you were not aware of before, right?
Absolutely.
Especially through psychedelic work. So at one point on this journey, I had a moment where I was quite delusionalized from therapy and from coaching, and I felt like how much of this work is actually really going into the depth and how much is just on the surface, and how much, especially of the coaching and self-development sphere, is all about manifesting everything that you ever wanted in your life.
Yeah.
How much of it is really just very ego-driven and very much like, fluffy and easy to sell.
Yeah, rather than kind of doing the real work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in that point of crisis, I felt that I really believe in the potential of psychedelics because I've experienced it for myself. And I set an intention that I would like to move into that field. And a few weeks later, I found myself on an after party of a psychedelic conference. Actually, I think that's the first time we met in person.
Oh, wow, really?
The ICPR.
Must have been, what, 5 years ago? Or
Something, 3-4-ish, I would say. Well, there was this after party, and because I've been DJing a lot, when I'm going to a party, there's a short moment where I'm always checking out the DJ booth and who's playing, and they're playing vinyl and all this like nerdy stuff. And I did that, and they had a logo in that DJ booth or behind the DJ booth of I looked it up on the dance floor, and it was a psychedelic organization in the Netherlands called Spinoza. And I thought, this looks like a really good place, and like a place I would love to connect to, and where maybe can fulfill this intention to move into the psychedelic space. And I'm sure you have heard Carl Jung speaking about synchronicity and how synchronicity happens when you're like on the right path.
Yeah. So
when I was back in Berlin, where I was living at that point, I had like a meet up with another music producer because very randomly his mother asked me if I could meet him because I think she felt I could support him in his production and his path. And I only know her very loosely from some self-development seminars, actually. So I met up with him, and we had a really, really cool conversation. And then we also shared a bit about the weekends, which is a very typical Berlin question, what you did on the weekend, usually aiming to which kind of parties did you go to. And then I shared about his conference, and he said, well, my brother was there as well. And I already felt, okay, something is happening.
Yeah.
And then we talked about why his brother was there, and he was there because he's really good friends with one of the founders of Spinoza, that company that I Googled on the dance floor.
Oh, wow. I love how these kind of things can come in at the right time.
Right. And I did my part and asked for an introduction, and then talked to Martin, is his name, and a few weeks later I was moving to Amsterdam to do an internship for them. And that's how I got into the psychedelic world. And through that work, and also through participating in ceremonies myself, I actually became aware of a lot of things that still at that point I had really repressed and haven't been able to access with the typical therapeutic and typical coaching tools, because a lot of them are only happening in the mind and not in the body. And that's the big thing I learned there, that it's really important to address the nervous system and the body. The body keeps the score. And when we're just talking about our childhood and not feeling what happened there, we get stuck in the story that we have been telling ourselves our whole lives long.
Yeah.
And it's usually the story of I had a happy childhood. But as I learned from one of my mentors, Gabor Mate, if you ask a few questions, nobody is staying with that story. And actually, most people realize it was not only happy. There were actually a lot of things that I have repressed for a long time, and actually, didn't consciously remember. But now when I start to talk about it and to move more into feeling into the body, those things are coming up again, and I can all of a sudden remember those. And that has been a massive shift for me, and that experience is informing everything I'm doing nowadays.
Wow. Oh, incredible. What a journey. Which way to go? Many avenues to take.
From here,
I think it's really fascinating, interesting around these kind of stories we tell ourselves about ourselves and about our lives. Do we do it out of a point of like consciousness, or mostly I probably think unconscious, that we don't want to really access these painful parts?
Yeah.
No, we don't want to come to terms that, maybe these things did happen to me and they were a little bit shitty or terrible, and we don't want to fully feel them. Or maybe they were protective mechanisms, stories we tell ourselves to, not access the bad parts or the challenging, difficult things.
Yeah.
But those stories can actually, then limit our lives, really, can't they?
100%. And, for me, something I remembered very clearly from my childhood is a lot of bullying in school. And even so, I remember that very clearly, and I could tell you exactly like certain places or certain people who were involved or certain topics, like reasons why I got bullied and all of that. At that point, a few years ago, I still haven't had really metabolized them because I didn't know how to feel what was happening at that point and what was locked into my nervous system, right? Like trauma is not what happens to us, but how our nervous system reacts towards what's happening.
Yeah.
And then the energy that's created through reacting towards what's happening, not being like fully released, but being like held on to, stuck down, like, stored in our nervous system, in our body through that. Like animals shake it off, but humans often, forgot about it.
Yeah.
Or as children, we just don't learn that this is possible. And then we freeze.
Yeah.
That's like the last resort, because mostly as children, we cannot fight back and we cannot run away.
Yeah.
And we have to freeze, because that's the only way that our nervous system can handle it at that point. And that happened a lot in the moments where I was bullied, and that those are things that were conscious to me, and it was already quite a mouthful to really go there and to feel that. And after a few years of doing this kind of work, I had moments of episodes in my childhood coming up that I just did not think about again from the moment on it happened. So where as an adult person, I did not remember them. And then bit by bit, there were like more fragments around sexual abuse in kindergarten coming up. And this has been extremely liberating and extremely powerful to be able to remember that, and then having the tools how to not get weighed down by it, but to actually be liberated from it.
Like to be able to really process it and move through it and kind of own it and integrate it as an experience that happened to you, and not letting it like interrupt with your life now as an adult.
Exactly. And we started off with like this topic of like the stories that we tell ourselves, and what I learned through this kind of work is that there are always like beliefs connected to those moments, and very common ones are like, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable enough, I'm not worthy, I'm a bad person, it's my fault, and that's not only then living with that specific moment. For example, with abuse, it's coming up in all kinds of moments. It's coming up when maybe a project is not going the way we wanted the project to go.
Yeah.
And it's like just killing us for weeks or months. And when we really go there, we feel like, I feel like I'm a failure, I'm not good enough. And when we then go back to the past, we quickly come to moments that happened many, 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 many years ago, in the first years of life. And they're they're still in us, they're still resonating us, they're still influencing us. Carl Jung said, as long as we don't make the unconscious conscious, it's going to reign our life, and we call it fate. And we can't even put the finger on what it actually is. So that's also quite a liberating moment of remembering the abuse, because then all of a sudden I knew, okay, this is what it's about. And I was never able to really put my finger on where this is coming from, and now I know. That's a really important part for me.
Yeah, wow. No, thank you for being so open and vulnerable and sharing that. I think it's something that I feel a lot of people deal with is, shame. They have so much shame for maybe what happened to them that they really suppress it and push it down, and they feel like I'm the only one in this, and I'm alone, and this causes like massive amounts of suffering for people.
Yeah.
And the way I kind of understand these kind of traumatic experiences are, they create an experience in the body, in the nervous system, where the sensation is so overwhelming that we suppress it, and it kind of gets kind of like frozen, like you said.
Yeah.
There's the Irish psychologist Ivor Brown calls about the frozen present, where the trauma almost gets like frozen in time and kind of pushed away, and then we don't fully feel it anymore. And then what happens for people is they might have a trigger to the external world, and then it comes up again in maybe a different way or in a relationship.
Yeah.
And it keeps them kind of stuck in this kind of like loop in the body.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to speak a little bit more into like, for this trauma that's like stored in our body. How do people really work? How do people start that journey of working through it?
Yeah. Like a common element, a common denominator that I see in a lot of different approaches is introspection. So the ability to sense and to feel what's going on inside of us.
Yeah.
And that's a big part, for example, of somatic experiencing. It's a big part of IFS, internal family systems, of Gabor Mate's approach, compassionate inquiry. And that's exactly what trauma takes from us. Because we learn that it's very painful that there's something very painful locked inside of us, and it's just natural that we then leave the body and go into the mind and into the outside world.
Like dissociate.
Dissociate, exactly. Which can take many different forms. It can take the form of addictions. It can form the form of daydreaming, of like always being on the next event and not really being here.
Not being present,
Not being present.
Yeah.
So it's a very big moment to come back to the body. And I once talked about this with a woman called Lee, who is the first somatic experiencing therapist I worked with. And she told me that I actually was the kind of client that she had to ask her supervisor for help, in terms of like being the client that just cannot go into the body and is always dissociating as soon as we get close to like what's actually alive in me.
Interesting.
So that's something that's, especially for men, is happening a lot, to be not in sync with your emotions and your body. And when you get the question like, what do you sense in your body? It's just blank. It's nothing.
Yeah.
So it's important to open that up and to open that up slowly. And in somatic experiencing, there's this term titration, which is actually a term out of chemistry, right? When you blend like something that's acidic and something that's a base, you cannot really blend it without it exploding.
Yeah,
right?
you have to do it nice and
slow. So you do like
slow.
drop by drop, and very slowly. You take one drop of the acid and one drop of the base.
Yeah.
And when it comes to, let's say, trauma-informed work, this means to start in a place of your body where you feel safe, to connect there, and then to go slowly into a place where you don't feel as safe. And then you go back to safety, and you go a bit more into discomfort, back to comfort. And often the first sessions are just that. And you can do that for like the whole session, basically.
Yeah.
And what happens through that is that our nervous system grows in its capacity. So there's a term, the window of tolerance. And the window of tolerance is what can your nervous system handle without going into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, so into like the stress response. What can your nervous system handle while you're still staying in a calm and centered place, even so you might connect to, for example, traumatic memories. And that's something you can build up over time. And through that, you can access more and more memories and emotions and beliefs and all those things without it overwhelming you. Because from the moment it's overwhelming you, you actually went too far or too quick or too soon. And of course, that's something you have to establish in therapy.
Yeah.
And it's normal that you will go into moments where it's a bit too much. And then you and your therapist learn like how to navigate that. And you can draw, from breathwork, from somatic tools like tapping or shaking.
Yeah.
All those things are super important to build up this capacity. And that's not only happening in the therapy sessions that happen. You have to do this every day. It's like playing an instrument. If you're not practicing every day, you will not learn this instrument. It's just a fact.
Like a skill, you almost.
It's a skill, and it needs daily. And I think it's actually really close to learning an instrument, because playing an instrument gets fun from the point where your muscle memory takes over, and where you don't have to, on a guitar, have to think anymore, where's the chord, or where do I have to put my fingers.
Yeah.
And I've been working with the nervous system is the same. And muscle memory is, for example, taking a deep breath when your system gets a bit worked up, or it's like just tapping without really thinking about it, and all of those things. So that's super important in this work. And then slowly, you can go deeper and deeper. And it's also nothing you do in 10 sessions. It's actually the work of many years, in my experience.
Wow.
And for me, psychedelics played a totally integral part in that. I remember many ceremonies that were very beautiful and very light. And I also remember many ceremonies that have been very challenging and very difficult. And actually, specifically, the abuse only came in the last year, in a ceremony with LSD. And it has been like the first few hours, the first 4 or 5 hours were just like trauma response. That's it. Like, it was fucking intense.
Yeah, wow. It's like maybe you're at a place where you could have the capacity then to go into that. Like I really
4 years, 5 years ago, I could not have it's just not possible to go there, because your subconscious always gives you the access to information when you're ready for it, which means when your nervous system is ready for it.
Wow.
Yeah. And I experienced this also with the car accident.
Wow.
Like, in terms of remembering the out-of-body experience, I remembered it like 4 or 5 years after the accident.
Yeah, it probably would have been just too much for the system. Probably would have totally destabilized your psyche, or caused you not to be able to function in the world if you had that much information flood in so fast.
That's so amazing that our system is able to navigate that for us.
Wow.
And it doesn't mean that it's easy, because it's still challenging, but it's not. It's like stretching. Stretching hurts a bit, but it can. When you get the hang of it, it actually feels really good. But you don't stretch in a way that you just get forced into a full split and break everything, right?
Well, it's actually really interesting around stretching. I did my yoga teacher training there a few months ago, and stretching is really tied to the nervous system as well. 100%. You can do these like moves called nervous system flossing, and when you do these like little moves, you're able to actually stretch deeper, because it gives your nervous system input that like it's actually okay to go deeper into the stretch. You're not going to hurt yourself.
Yeah, like yin yoga does that a lot, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's one point I'd like to pick up on there is this idea of titration. Yeah. And I feel like this is really important, especially for men. So, if you're listening, this is really important. I feel like there's kind of like a little bit of a narrative when people get into, personal development or psychedelics or spiritual work, that they need to like blow themselves apart. I want ego dissolution. I want to like take 3 cups of ayahuasca and I want this big catharsis. And it's like, maybe that's not what you need right now. Is that compassion towards yourself? So I really feel like, having this approach where there's like little bits of a time is important. And I feel like this fear of, and I'd love you to speak into it, of trauma-informed facilitation is kind of becoming really big in the last few years.
Yeah, luckily, yeah.
And And I'd love for you to speak into that.
Into what how trauma-informed facilitation and titration
Yeah, absolutely. Like
goes hand in hand.
Yeah, why should people seek out facilitators that have done some form of trauma-informed training?
Yeah, I love that question. It's really important for me personally, and I personally don't work with facilitators anymore on the receiving side who are not trauma-informed, and where I hear in their language that they are not. Because, in my opinion, people who are not trauma-informed can do a lot of harm. And in the best case, it's innocently and not knowingly, and in the worst case, it's actually deliberately. With facilitators who are abusers. And, the stories of like gurus who preach love and compassion and nonviolence and all of those things, and at the same time are raping their students. I mean, we had a few of those now that are were like in the public, and there are many more that like are in the dark.
Yeah.
And that's a good example of someone who is definitely not trauma-informed and definitely did not do their own shadow work, their own trauma work.
Absolutely.
And, where as soon as they're in a position of power, they, for example, reenact the abuse that they experienced from someone who was in power, maybe a father or a teacher or something like that. So sadly, that's happening way too often. And that's why I feel this whole topic of trauma-informed work is super, super important. And maybe it's a good idea to define a bit what trauma-informed means.
Yeah, please.
And for me, trauma-informed means, well, first of all, to know what trauma is and to acknowledge that trauma exists in the first place. There are a lot of spiritual teachers out there who say, for example, you grow what you focus on. So when you focus on trauma, you grow trauma. When you focus on pain, you grow pain. So just don't focus on it. I'm sure you heard that as well.
Yeah.
In the one or the other way.
Yeah.
And there's some truth on like what you focus on grows, but often those things are getting twisted in ways that are just not really helpful or harmful. So first of all, acknowledging, okay, there is trauma. Everyone has trauma. Gabor Mate says, if you're growing up in our society and you don't have trauma, you're an absolute outlier. Mm-hmm. So to acknowledge that we all carry things that we haven't found peace with yet is really important. Mm-hmm. I remember when I was, when I did like Vipassana for the first time. So Vipassana is like a silent retreat where you are in silence for 10 days and where you're meditating a lot. And then the evenings you are listening to recordings of the person who set that up. And he talks a lot about suffering. And when he talked about suffering, I was like, what is he talking about? I'm not suffering. Like,
I remember those lectures. Oh my God, every evening.
Start again.
Yeah. And Nietzsche.
So it's really important to acknowledge that. And it needs a certain humbleness also to say, yeah, I've experienced things that I haven't resolved yet.
Yeah.
So that's important. That's one part of it. And then to know what trauma does in the nervous system and what it needs to work with it in a safe way. And I mean, we could expand that definition into way more detail, but that's maybe like a very simple one. And yeah, titration is important in that light because it's just better and more helpful to move slowly and step by step and to resource your system on this way than taking the sledgehammer and just going with the sledgehammer on it. And I've done that too. And I've been, in terms of, in the past, whenever I saw a sledgehammer, I would take it for myself, basically, for my own work. And like the more intensity, the better.
Right there with you. Guilty.
Which is typically, by the way, for people who carry trauma, because as we already touched on, when you have a lot of trauma, you're desensitized.
Desensitized.
Thank you. Yeah. you're that, and that means you're not. You need a lot of input to feel something.
Yeah.
And that's usually the sledgehammer methods are giving that to you.
Yeah.
But usually it's too much. And I found myself in a situation after like a tantric retreat where I was going back and forth from being very like shut down. I would say back then say really calm. Nowadays I know it was actually shut down, and feeling like walking underneath like a high currency line and having this buzz in the body.
Wow.
Because I just overdid it and my system was destabilized and things were triggered from my past that I didn't have the tools to work with in this moment, which is happening when we're not moving in a titrated way. So that's super, super important. Another part of the trauma-informed work is also that facilitators mention that everything we do here is an offering and you can always opt out.
Yeah, like an invitation.
It's an invitation.
Only.
And that they make it easy for you to say no.
Yeah.
And they also frame that at the beginning, that it's okay to say no, or it's okay to say, I don't want to do this exercise with this person because just I don't want to do that with this person.
Yeah, you almost don't have to give a reason even. It can be
exactly.
like a firm no.
Yeah. Or like to show people, for example, in a tantric space, how can you say no non-verbally?
Mm-hmm.
I feel trauma-informed is also, for example, the discussion around that if there was no clear yes for a sexual interaction, it's rape. I'm agreeing with that. Mm-hmm. If there's no clear yes, it means a no.
Yeah. Yeah.
For example.
My work, I've always heard like maybe is a no.
Yeah.
You know, there's no gray area. It's a yes, maybe it's a no, and a no is a no.
Yeah. I feel that's super important because way more people than you might think are actually struggling to say no. Not only women, men as well, like across the board. And they feel like, if I say no, I'm like the uncool person, or I'm a bit like the party pooper, or like I'm judged for being whatever. The
peer pressure and the societal pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. I have a little quote here I want to read out from Gabor Mate. You know, Gabor Mate is at the forefront of like this trauma work. He works a lot with people in addiction. And I want to read these kind of two quotes here, and I'd love to hear what you think about them. Trauma is not what happens to you. Trauma is what happens inside you as a result of what happens to you.
Yeah.
And the second one that I really like here is, when the body says no, the cost is always high. Suppressed stress and emotion don't disappear. They express themselves in symptoms.
Yeah, I agree with both of them from my own lived experience and from the experience I've had with many clients. And I feel the first one we already explored a bit. That and it's actually a really important quote, because if trauma would be what happened to us, we would be pretty much fucked, because we cannot change what happened to us.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
That would be like chapter is closed. Like go and have a nice life. It's like it would be really detrimental.
Yeah.
So the distinction that it's not what happened to us, but how we innocently reacted to what happened is really important, because we can change the narrative, we can change the reaction that has actually been running on autopilot very often from that moment onwards.
Yeah.
Because it didn't stop at this moment, it continued and continued and continued. I just read a really great book by another pioneer in that field called Dr. Peter Levine, who's the founder of Somatic Experiencing. It's called Trauma Proofing Your Children.
Oh, wow.
Amazing book for parents.
Yes.
And he explains what trauma is and the nervous system, all of those things in very simple terms, and then gives a lot of ideas how you can support your children in specific situations. And he also gives a lot of examples. For example, of a child who fell from his high chair and split his chin open, and he needed surgery, and they had to strap him down to do this surgery. And then afterwards, they had some ice cream or something like that, and it was fine. And then half a year later, the child started to become more and more aggressive.
Wow.
And at first, the parents didn't realize that it's actually connected to this incident of the surgery and being strapped down and being stripped of his power. And then with Peter Levine, they could resolve that through going there and through like playful interventions with the child. And in those interventions, the child would start to tremble and release energy and go through like an array of different emotions. And yeah, he released the energy and he renegotiated, as they say, the situation. And then the tantrums just stopped as a byproduct. And I feel actually with that story, I'm touching on both the quotes, right? Like it's the quote of like, it's not what happened to us, it's what keeps on happening. And sometimes that can be really like not that visible.
Yeah.
Not only for children, also for adults. Like, why am I always getting really angry when I see someone wearing like a ring like this?
Yeah.
Maybe because an abuser was exactly wearing this kind of ring.
Yeah.
Or just a teacher who blamed me and bullied me. It doesn't need to be this. It doesn't need to be sexual abuse. In fact, the biggest trauma is not being seen.
Okay.
So it's not the typical adverse childhood experiences like physical abuse, emotional abuse, neglect, illness of a parent, addiction of a parent, divorce, all of those very more or less obvious things.
Yeah.
The biggest trauma is not being seen. And there's a distinction, and Gabor Mate talks about this in great detail, between being seen and being loved. And for example, I was very loved by my parents. I was an absolute how would you say that in English? Like my mother really wanted to have a child, and my dad as well. So they really wished for me.
Yeah.
And I was growing up in a very stable home. And at the same time, my parents did not have the tools to work on their own emotions, so they also could not teach me how to work on my emotions. And couldn't receive me when I was angry, for example. And through that, I learned I'm not seen when I'm angry. I'm too much, for example, when I'm angry.
Yeah.
And yeah, emotions like anger or shame just didn't have space in my childhood. And through that, I had to repress them and to learn to adapt to my parents, because children are always adapting to their parents. Children have the need for self-expression and for authenticity, and they have the need for attachment. And attachment is always winning, because children know without a caregiver they can't live.
Yeah,
I just have a newborn at home, and I can see how vulnerable this newborn is and how they can't do anything.
Yeah,
they can't turn on their back. They can't. They're just like, when you put them somewhere, they're just there, right? Like you put them in their crib, and they can't move at all. You can put them on a table, and they can't do anything.
Yeah,
it's incredible actually to witness that, how this vulnerability. So children know that. It's like hardwired in us, and they will always suppress themselves in order to keep the relationship with their parents. And that's very often overlooked. And also like the not being seen is often overlooked. And yeah, very often it's actually manifesting in what they call psychosomatic symptoms. And both my parents are medical doctors, and my dad was a principal doctor for internal medicine. And I mean, internal medicine is the field of psychosomatic stuff, right? Like it's showing up as heartburn, it's showing up as digestive issues, it's showing up as back pain, as like just tension in the body, like a headache, migraine attacks, all those things. And my dad told me very often, like, the majority of the people he saw were like in this bracket of psychosomatic symptoms, because they would run all the tests and they wouldn't find any explanation for why this person is always having digestive issues, for example. And that happens because we are blocking ourselves in our energetic flow, basically, through innocently holding on trauma, traumatic imprints, and that will show up in the body at one point or the other, which is actually, again, a gift. Like one of my teachers sees that as an alarm system, and our body is sending us alarms when we're like doing things that are not good for us, when we're going into a wrong direction. And either we are listening, or an alarm is doing what a good alarm does. It gets louder.
Yeah.
And it can get really loud. And I've experienced that for myself, to be really stressed, to suffer from depression or anxiety to an extent where it was just not manageable anymore. And those were also moments that led me on this path and like looking for solutions, or just randomly meeting people who were practitioners in certain modalities through like picking up a package at a neighbor's, for example.
Wow.
Yeah.
I find this is, and it's probably the same for women too, but for a lot of men, I think we maybe lean to a side of like avoiding these sensations and avoiding these feelings, like wherever they are in the body. And then what actually happens then, these feelings that are being suppressed and these sensations that are being suppressed actually start to cause this disease in the body. You know, this discomfort enters into diseased, whatever isn't being expressed is going to be repressed into the body, and ultimately that's going to make you sick. Like, what do you feel like it's kind of like that? Yeah,
totally. It's many things are really symptoms and actually not the cause. And when you go deeper, you get to the cause. And I love parts work for that. IFS, for example, because a very typical question is the question: if that part of your body could speak, what would it say?
Yeah.
And it's really amazing what's coming up in that. And it could be like, for example, like asking the part of your back that's always hurting, if you could speak, what would you say? And maybe the part, I remember that from a client session, the part said like, you're always repressing me.
Wow.
And then, okay, who is repressing what? And then going deeper into that.
Yeah.
And something that's occurring very often, it was also the case with this client, that it was actually the voice of his father.
That's so fascinating. I really see, like, you know, the body as the unconscious, and like these pains and these signals from our body are actually the way in, you know, the way into the psyche. But it's kind of crazy that like a lot of modern society is structured around like, don't feel your body and just get on with it. You know, or, you know, I think a lot of therapies for the last number of years have been very cognitive, very head-based.
Yeah, it's very like top down.
Yeah.
Like it's like in the body, in the mind.
Yeah.
And bottom up would be what we're talking about, to go
Yes.
through the body and the nervous system into the mind, into, for example, what's coming up then as memories.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're totally right. I also see that society is actually also rewarding people to live in their heads.
Yeah. Be good worker bees, work harder, work more. Don't feel your pain.
Do intellectual studies, academia, all of that, which is all great.
Yes.
But if it's the only thing we can access, we actually don't access anything. If we're not living in our bodies, we only access a fraction of what's actually possible for human beings. And that's also something I remember very clearly from Gabor Mate's book about ADHD, Scattered Minds. And there's a whole chapter on how ADHD shows up in adults. And one thing he touches on is that when we are like shut down from our emotions, from our inner world, we are shut down from ourselves. We don't have access to who we are. And when we don't have access to who we are, we have to find a replacement, and we build up a character who is defined through his or her work, or their relationships, status, and all those things.
Like external validation.
External validation, exactly. And well, I guess most people who are listening are also realizing, well, it's quite serving the kind of society that we're living in when people live like that, because people like that consume more, they change relationships more quickly.
Impulse buying,
yeah. Maybe in the middle of London, like you could impulse buy the whole day here.
Yeah.
And at the end, if you live like that, you're super vulnerable to all psychology that's used by marketeers, for example, with scarcity and fear of missing out, and like promising you that if you buy this device or this shirt, you're like more you attracting more women or more men or all these things.
Yeah.
So it's really serving society, sadly, and I feel that's a big point. And a really important point that that's something I wish would change in our society.
Yeah, and I feel like maybe it is starting to change, and I'd love for you to speak into like how can this somatic work and psychedelics, how can those two things really help us to work through these like modern mental illnesses?
Yeah. Well, I feel that those modalities, this kind of work is connected to everything. Just touched on, okay, if you're disconnected from yourself, you will consume more. You will buy more clothes, for example. The clothing, fashion industry is one of the biggest contributors in climate change, right?
Yeah.
Massive pollution, as fast fashion, for example. London is full of those stores, Primark, H&M, and all of that. And if you go to like Regent Street, Oxford Circus, where a lot of those flagship stores are, it's like crazy busy. Like thousands of people are going in and out there. So I feel reducing consumption. And, I love to buy well-designed products, for example. And I'm getting more and more deliberate in like finding brands that are sustainable, that are using like cotton or like natural materials and all of that, which I also see in relationship to plant medicine work, by the way, because it's another form of being more connected to nature. It's like to find it more appealing to have natural materials.
Yeah.
I'm very conscious in not buying plastic toys for my newborn son. Or toys where I don't know what's in them.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies, as I found out, through like sending in an email and asking what's in there, are very deflective and say, well, it's all like soft and soothing materials. But they're not telling me that what they use, for example.
I think they're
disclosing it deliberately.
They used to put like lead, I think, in kids' toys, didn't they, at one point? Like,
I mean, if you look in history, it's kind of... But there was a massive case in Switzerland against Nestle because they found like very toxic ingredients in like Formula One, and like the replacement for like breast milk. Wow. And that's like just like last year, basically.
And talcum powder, didn't talcum powder have some sort of like, the stuff you put on babies' bums, the powdery stuff?
It's like asbestos.
Or something.
It's like going on, it's like
carcinogenic, something
exactly,
carcinogenic.
For your lung. It's like crazy as fuck. We could do a whole episode, I think, about that topic alone. But I feel, nature to connection, super important.
Yeah.
That leads, in my experience, to different choices in consumption, not only consuming less, but being more appealed by natural materials. For example, wooden toys, or like cotton, or like things like that. It leads to an awakening of just wanting to treat yourself in a really good way.
Yeah.
That can have a massive influence on diet.
Yeah.
And like a conscious choice of what am I eating, which is again influencing our environment massively. It's connected to realizing if I judge somebody else, I'm actually judging myself. Like a principle of shadow work, right? We're like projecting our shadows.
Yeah.
So if I'm have a lot of judgment around a specific kind of person, I'm actually judging myself. If I'm healing that wound, I stop judging somebody else, and I can actually really meet them where they are, and I can really embrace them, and I can really be with them.
Like have more compassion for them and where they're at, and not like throwing a stone at them.
Exactly. Transgenerational trauma, meaning like if I experience something traumatizing and I'm carrying that in me and I'm not resolving it, I will pass it on to the next generation.
Yeah.
Resolving that is massive. I briefly touched on my parents not being able to meet me in anger and shame. That's why they could not recognize that I was abused in kindergarten, and they could not recognize that I was bullied so much in primary school that I was suicidal, because they just couldn't see it, because they blocked out shame and anger for themselves.
Yeah, so it's like...
Yeah, it's not about blaming your parents, by the way. I love my parents dearly, and all parents do the best thing they can, but it's still important to talk about it in a critical way.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw this this video of like intergenerational or transgenerational trauma, where you have these glasses, and one glass is like really muddy water, and you pour like half of that into the next one. You know, a little bit is lost, but there's still some there, and then you pour it into the next one, and there's a little bit less there, and you know, each generation is doing the best that they can, with the tools and with the awareness that they have. Yeah, totally. But then this work is like, I feel like the work that people are doing now is like really generational breaking of chains, like almost like
100%.
You know,
and we are like in an extremely
now.
Privileged position that we can do that, and that it's all so accessible, and that we can just Google for psychedelic integration, for example. The first time I did psychedelics, it didn't go that well, to say the least, and I was really struggling with it. And if I would have been aware of that there is maybe somebody like who is specialized on this, and I can just find them in the internet, that would have been extremely helpful. But back then there was nothing like that, and we're talking about 2011, not that long ago.
And it's such a deep privilege to be alive now. Yeah. And it's, you know, I think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you know, like most of them things are like fulfilled for a lot of people on the planet at the moment. You know, we can have whatever we want, click of a button, and you'll get it in 2 or 3 days. You know, it's ridiculous. Like we have this opportunity to do this work now, and to heal generations of pain and stuff that's been passed on culturally as well, and societally. Totally.
And you know, like we do live on a limited planet, but it's way less limited as we might think. Yeah. Like I actually remember you telling me that you realize when you take the train or go by car, you realize how extremely vast this planet is. When you fly from place to place, you think it's like super, super small.
Oh, it's huge. Right? I flew to Japan last year, and we were flying over China, and it was just like endless land. And then you get to the cities, and everyone's like squashed into this little city, where it feels like everything's so compact and packed. Yeah. But like even flying over Ireland, which is really small, I always think, wow, Ireland's so huge. There's green fields for like hours, you know, or minutes or whatever, you know.
Totally. And I feel that's also something that changed for me personally through that work. Like that I really enjoy coming into London and into a city and do certain things. But I would not like to live anymore in the center of a city. And back in my 20s, I had like a massive fear of missing out if I would not be in a big city. Yeah. Nowadays, I really enjoy being closer to nature again, and to just have a beautiful lake and that I can walk around with my newborn every morning.
Beautiful.
It gives me so much more. Yeah, coming together in community is super important. It's basically... I've seen a really great chart once in a book of Ken Wilber, who's like a theoretical philosophist and psychologist. The book was about bringing together Western and Eastern approaches. And what he pointed out is that suffering comes from separation and from creating superficial borders. And one separation could be, for example, from our authentic self, and then many different parts that are like alienated from each other, and parts that we pushed so much away that we don't even know anymore that they're there. In my case, for example, the abused child. Yeah. To heal that, then to heal the separation between us humans and, for example, racism or sexism or just othering other people, other human beings. There's this quote that if you're not seeing divinity in the next person you're meeting, then you don't have to seek further. You, like, do the work and see the divinity in the next person. The divide between humans, mankind, and nature. Mm-hmm. The divide between the physical form and the spiritual form, the physical world and the spiritual world. That's all. It's about connecting, and through connection, healing those divides.
I love that,
and that's so fundamental. I mean, there's so many examples between men and women. It's so needed right now, and I feel that information about trauma is really, really paramount there, because a lot of people innocently pass it on. It's happening innocently because people don't know about it. So I feel more knowledge about trauma and how you can work with those things is super important. And at the end of the day, it's so much about softening. Yeah. And softening the nervous system, softening the ideas that we hold about ourselves. And through that, experiencing massive growth and like resilience and beauty in like the smallest things and in every interaction, in every encounter we have. I remember interviewing Shedam Yates, really a very amazing DJ, and he said he realized that everything in his life are assignments, and every person he meets, he actually has an appointment with.
Wow, I love that. That's so great.
And like, no, okay, this is the person I have an appointment with. Yeah. Somehow. Yeah. I might not have chosen it consciously, but this is the person right now.
Wow, I love that.
And that's something that stayed with me.
Yeah, what's present there right now, in the now. Yeah, I'd want to close on just one thing. You know, for me in my own life, I found music, dancing, and music dance spaces to be like deeply, deeply healing. They're medicine, they're therapeutic. I'd love for you to speak about that little bridge between the creative world, music, and therapy.
Yeah, that's such an amazing topic. You know, before I got into psychedelics and medicine music and all of that, I actually was really into techno and electronic music, and I was really into DJing and producing and all of that. And nowadays I know why, because it's, as you say, there's a massive overlap. And not only because a lot of those fields are also very open towards substances, but also because it's a ceremonial act to come together and to dance together to like one beat, basically, to one drum around a fire or in a club like Berghain. And it's about, it's maybe more difficult to find it nowadays, but you know, techno house comes from marginalized spaces, from Black communities, from queer communities. Those places of coming together and feeling safe, and being able to share about a shared experience that you cannot share with other people in your life usually. Those were and are spaces where all people from all from all walks of life are just dancing next to each other, and it's not important if one of them is a lawyer and the other one is like cleaning toilets. It's really like community based. Yeah. It's counterculture. It's questioning very much like the mainstream, so to speak, and like the mainstream ideas. Yeah. Those are a few overlaps I see nowadays when I look back why I was drawn to like electronic music, for example.
Now you're doing this in like a very kind of similar space, like a safe space, like ceremonial music, which is a place of like people coming together, sharing ideas, working on themselves. And
a big difference for me is that there's an intention. That you're not just going to a club and you're having some drinks or you're taking some MDMA or popping a pill.
To escape yourself.
Because there's sadly a lot of escapism in that scene, in the nightlife scene, and a lot of suppression, and I've seen a lot of very tragic things there.
Hedonism as well.
Yeah, but like something that comes from an unhealed place. Yeah. and from a place of substituting something without knowing it.
Yeah.
And it's actually the shadow playing out in an unconscious way. So having an intention, why am I going to dance? And it doesn't need to be with substances. It can also be an ecstatic dance, sober, nothing, maybe a bit of cacao or just breathwork.
Yeah.
But having an intention makes it so different.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had massive breakthroughs in my trauma journey on dance floors with MDMA, for example. Super therapeutic experiences. But also because I know how to hold it and how to set an intention, how to breathe through it, and how to actually go there, even in a nightclub. I mentioned earlier that something that drew me to self-development was my being like blocked in connecting to others. The first time experiencing MDMA in a nightclub and being the kind of person who talks a bit too much and who just talks people against the next wall was a very liberating experience.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky that I always had this approach of like, okay, if that's possible with the substance, it's also possible without it, because the substance is not giving that to me, it's unlocking something that's already inside of me. So I can learn how to unlock it myself. But if that door is open, it stays open, and you can open it more and find new ways into it, but it's really unlocking something. So that's another parallel for me. And I mean, just music itself is therapeutic.
Yeah.
And dancing is therapeutic. And also expressing yourself in music is such a beautiful gift. And a quote I live by as a musician is a quote by Quincy Jones. And he said, your music will only be as good as you are as a human being. So start to work on your human being.
Wow.
As another combination. And I mean, this is a big topic for me.
Wow.
Art therapy is amazing to paint like your pain, or to paint, certain emotions. And it's not about being a master painter. It can be really simple, but just to be with that and then to be able to talk about it with your therapist, or to see what's coming up and I look at this. And I've many moments like this with therapists I worked with as a client that were really influential for me, and where I when I'm listening to music that was played in ceremonies, I'm connecting back to that. Some of my shamans say that in a psychedelic ceremonies, especially the lyrics are weaving into the subconscious, and they will serve you in your life when you need them, and they come up again as thoughts or as melodies.
Yeah, I can believe that for myself. Yeah, totally.
Sadly, some people in that space say that the lyrics are not important. I think those people are not right about that, and they have maybe not experienced that yet.
Yeah,
it's really important.
Yeah,
listening to music very consciously, like
positive affirmations, like encoding and wiring them in on a deep kind of subconscious level. It's
totally
important.
I'm very conscious nowadays with lyrics, and as a teenager I loved Iron Maiden. I would not listen to this anymore because it's all about battles and like killing and like
angsty kind of like
it's like, I mean, being conscious about those things and then making conscious and informed choice is really important. And the more you can do that, the more your life will change.
Love that, George. So I think we'll finish on that. It's been such a pleasure. I feel like we really started to get going there in the last few minutes. Probably have to do another round at some point.
I would love that.
Deep pleasure to have you here in the studio.
Likewise.
And
thanks for doing this work. It's so important.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah. We got to keep championing it, you know. So if people want to hear about you and your work, where can they find you?
They can find me on my website, which is George Stuby, stuby.com. They can find me on Instagram as I am George Stuby. They can find my podcast. I'm always delighted to get into personal conversations. So if you want, you can always reach out on Instagram or via email, and I'm super happy to get in touch.
No, thank you, George. And thank you all for listening to this week's episode. If you made it this far, please make sure to give a like, share, anything kind of bubbling up for you, drop it in the comments. We'd love to hear. And until next week, peace and love. Take care.
Take care.